So as you can see by this stat here on your screen, out of the top 1 million websites, only 2% follow basic web accessibility needs. That's quite a staggering number, right? And the reality is that with the world population having over 1 billion people with disabilities, and only 2% of these websites meet our needs, as designers, we need to improve this and improve society as a whole. And as you can see from this graph here, we're really lucky and fortunate to be living in a time in history where life expectancy is at its highest ever levels. And if you're born in the year 2050 in the UK, you're lucky enough to have a life expectancy of 85 years. And it's not uncommon to think about having not just grandparents, but great-grandparents, which is remarkable and we're so lucky to have. However, if the population is getting older and people are living longer, there's many studies that report how vision, cognition, and physical skills decline rapidly with advancing age. Yet, are our apps and services putting these needs first? 70% of people over 70 in the UK have some kind of hearing impairment. This figure just shows how crucial it is, like as you advance with age, people have changing needs and services. And not just with accessibility, with physical impairments, that are permanent, there's also this need of temporary accessibility needs. What about the location that you're in? If you're in London in a noisy tube, you won't be able to hear that well. You might not have any signal. You might live in a more remote location. Health. What happens if you've broken your wrist or you're pregnant or you're on some sort of medication that limits what you can do day to day? The equipment that you use. Have you ever thought about someone's using more of a budget smartphone where the screen resolution is not that high? They might have a smashed screen, or they might be in a situation where the equipment limits what they can do day to day. And as you can see here, the older people with accessibility needs, they're a lot more reliant on our digital services. They're cited to say how they considerably improve our lives. So as a designer, we have the benefit, if we design for these people, in having the duty to actually help these people and make their lives better. Not only this, people with accessibility needs, when using websites and services, they would like to actually buy more and spend more. But the fact that we're designing apps and services that limit this, there's a massive opportunity here to help people fulfill their needs. Hopefully you can see there's never been a greater focus on need to look at accessibility. So thinking about accessibility in your team, have you ever thought about doing field research, increasing awareness, inclusive teams? I think these are 3 key areas that I've hand selected for you to look at to implement in your team today. Have you ever used your product or service in the actual field? So this is actually going out and using your product. Whether you're a delivery driver or you're delivering parcels, or it's a fitness app, a banking app, have you actually gone and used this app and service and build empathy for your users? You can build unparalleled empathy by actually using your app in the field. Have you ever actually climbed up those 15 flights of stairs when the lift's not working to deliver a parcel? Have you actually seen like the contrast issues you get when using your phone in the city, or the signal issues that may arise? An example I like to give is when trading, beginners are usually encouraged to use dummy cash. However, say if you've lost $5,000 that is fake, it's totally different to losing $5,000 in real life. The emotions are totally different. The scenario is totally different. Having users inside your lab is doing user research is totally different to actually going out there and doing it yourself. So from field research, we learned how, people use their phone one-handed. This can benefit people with impairments who might not always be able to use their hands. We noticed that GPS and network was also always blocked. People might be in more remote locations that can help out people with these accessible needs. We also noticed that when delivering parcels, English isn't everyone's first language. So this could help people with dyslexia, or being in London is such a diverse city, it's usually expected that English isn't always someone's first language. A game we like to play inside Ford is cards for humanity. You might have heard of the game Cards Against Humanity, but Cards for Humanity is a great game to change your way of thinking. It makes you delve into deeper aspects of people's lives, changing your way of thinking. Have you ever thought about what it's like to actually design an app or service for someone that's blind, or someone that's visually impaired, or someone that may be deaf? What happens if someone has anxiety or dyslexia? These aren't common needs that you might think of day to day at your desk in the office, but playing this game really helps change your way of thinking. A key thing to look at is who's taking ownership inside your organization. So it might be great listening to this talk, reading about accessibility and understanding the needs for it. But the reality is that people need to be accountable inside your organization. Accountability means that people will be responsible for making sure your designs are accessible, your product is accessible. Could that person be you? It may be a really tough challenge to make people accountable for accessibility. We've all been there before, but the reality is that if you don't start today, who else is going to start? Diverse and inclusive teams. This is a great way to understand different needs for people. Changing the way you're thinking of your team, if you have people from not just diverse cultures and backgrounds, but diverse accessible needs, people with dyslexia, for example, people with hearing impairments or visual impairments, they make you change your way of thinking on your team, something you might not think of day to day at your desk. Too often we're designing for the perfect use case, but putting accessibility first with a diverse team can really help everyone. And hopefully you can see from this chart here, what's the biggest barrier to accessibility? Majority of people say not having people accountable inside their organization. Having someone accountable really helps rein this in and ensures that you're putting accessibility first in your design process. Great places to start today as a designer. Looking at your copy, colors and font sizes, and the layout of your page. Let's delve deeper into looking at your copy. So this is quite a low reading age in the UK. I would have thought this would have been a lot higher. The reality is people don't have the best literacy levels. So this limits what people can use day to day. So does that mean that as a designer that you want to be talking more formally? The vocabulary that you use day to day might not be inclusive for everyone. You might be limiting what someone can actually say or read, and your product might be exclusive. So writing in plain English helps solve this problem. So the key thing here to look at is removing jargon from your text. As designers working on your product day to day, you might be working in your team for months or years, and you might start to get familiar with key terms and jargon that seems normal to you, but someone outside of your app might not understand that. So making sure that you're breaking down that barrier of making sure your copy's free of jargon. People with dyslexia, for example, it's key to start to break down your sentences and paragraphs, making them more simple. Writing in plain English helps everyone. Have you ever gone and read an article on a website and went, that was way too easy to read? Why did they make that more complex? I don't know anyone that's really said that. Writing in plain English helps everyone. Everyone loves simple written instructions and text. Does it sound like something you'd say? We like to build a glossary of simple key terms and text that we might use day to day. But in emails, people have a common habit of writing formally. But would you say this when you talk in real life? For example, would you say assistance or would you say help? Would you say bag identifier or bag information? Would you say commence or start? Changing the way you speak makes your app sound more human, like you're actually talking to someone in person. And this really does help everyone. Keeping sentences under 20 words. This is really key. As you can see, like the longer your sentence, the more complex and the less people will understand. Breaking up any long sentences. Lorem ipsum, it's common to put dummy text around your design or your prototype. The reality is, it might help in the short term when you have to deliver that design really quickly, but in the long term, it helps no one. Can you really help have that first go at the iteration of your copy? Remember, copy is iterative, just like your designs. Change your way of thinking of your design team as a whole. Try and actually engage with the copy and have a go at writing in plain English. Try and actually put your hands in it and delve into the user needs. What would you write there? What would you like to see? Reforming the digital copy. We and the last mile delivery team have reformed our digital copy after running trials in the city and realizing people might have dyslexia. Some porters' English isn't their first language. And we realized, wait, let's actually look at the plain English guidelines and reform our digital copy to have a bigger and wider impact. This helped porters delve deeper into the app, and they were able to perform deliveries a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently because they understood the process. Now, looking at color and contrast, this might seem like a really obvious one. However, there's a lot of research that backs up saying how the top 1 million websites, over 86% of them fail on contrast issues. And that could be a lot better. You could be influenced in that decision. Low contrast on text, it makes it hard to read for people with certain accessibility needs. A great plugin I love on Figma is this contrast plugin by Alex Carr. It's really simple to run. You can make sure that your text and the color that you're using is conforming with AA and AAA web content accessibility guidelines. I encourage everyone that uses Figma to install this plugin and have a go. Don't just rely on color. From experience on the Full Pass Pro app as a designer, the Full Pass Pro app allows you to manage your vehicle health remotely from the palm of your hand. So you can check the health of your vehicle and any vehicle updates as a fleet manager. However, solely relying on color theory, we learned a lot of lessons here. We realized people were getting confused with the colors. Some people had different interpretations of what red, green, and orange meant. Some people with low contrast devices, they couldn't even make out the colors. And if you're colorblind, you wouldn't even notice the difference between the colors. So I encourage you not just to rely on colors when it comes to designing apps and services, but having alternative text there as well. Use color to support what you're trying to say. Also, a key thing that we learned on the Full Pass Pro app is when using dark themes, make sure your color palettes are accessible. It's a lot harder in a dark theme to make sure they're accessible compared to a light theme. So be careful when you're enforcing dark themes on your users. Structuring your site clearly. So this is a key one for users that will be using screen readers. Have you labeled your site clearly as a developer with the right H1, H2, H3 tags? Are you making sure your pages are consistent? And are you making sure that you're using the right alternative text for your images? Imagine if you was using a screen reader and the image was just blank, or the text and links that you use just say read more or click here. This doesn't help people with accessibility needs, nor does it really help users without impairments. You want to tell people where these links are about to take them. A great case study to look at is the NHS UK website. The NHS is a great free-to-all access healthcare system in the UK. And it's a healthcare system that's accessible to everyone, not only in person, but digitally. The NHS recognized this and realized that in 2016, they had to redesign their website to make sure it's accessible to everyone. Whether you're deaf, you're blind, you have dyslexia, any kind of impairment, the NHS should be accessible to everyone. They put accessibility first, and not only did it mean that they had a wider reach of users, they were attracting more visitors to their website, their SEO went up, and it reduced the average time spent on the page. So that means task completion was going up. I think this is a great case study to look at, just to show how putting accessibility first has helped the NHS collectively. So too often, the people who need our services the most, they often find them hardest to use. We're usually at risk as designers of excluding people. A great example of this is the tough pandemic that we're going through right now. especially earlier on, where the most vulnerable people, they were told to stay at home. So what does this mean? It means that day-to-day services that are essential are now being denied to you. You're now relying on family members and friends to access these needs for you. Or if you're fortunate enough to have enough digital literacy to use the current apps and websites, then luckily for you, you was able to access them. But there's a strong amount of people out there that can't, and we're excluding them as designers. And we're at risk of designing the future generation of older people out of our services. And hopefully you can see from this figure, there's a strong amount of people in the UK that can't use the internet by themselves. So they're either relying on their friends or families to help them, or they're just not online whatsoever. This is about 16% of the UK population. This is a lot higher than I would have thought. So we can't deny these people digital services. As designers, we really are in a position where we can have a wider impact of changing people's lives. Hopefully you can see the wider impact of what a designer can have in society as a whole. So, for example, if you're designing online banking services, as a designer, the indirect impact this has on people from lower incomes is massive. You're more likely to save 45% on bills and services if you're using online banking. The reason being is because you can now manage your finances easily, switch suppliers, and this has such a great impact if you're on a lower income. Bills take a higher proportion of your disposable income. What does that mean? It means that if you're saving more on your bills and you're on a lower income, you now can buy essential services that you would have been saving up for quicker and more easily. You can now support your kids and buy more essential services because you're able to save more. The internet is great as well for learning new skills and accessing new opportunities. You can, as someone that's maybe denied certain opportunities at home, being online, you can now learn new skills, and you can. There's a wealth of opportunities out there for you. It can completely change people's lives. And as a designer, we're in the position of helping people out if we put accessibility first. Designing specifically for the elder group not only benefits them, and it's common misconception that, if I design for the elderly group, it might actually impair the designs, the UX for the younger people. That's not true. There's many studies out there that backs this data up. If you put accessibility first, you're not at risk of ruining your UX or user experience or your completion rates. And I think the key here is about moving the needle. Making sure people are accountable for accessibility in your organization. It won't happen overnight. It won't happen within a week or within a month. It's key having these conversations. Going to the talk today will help you educate yourself, educate your peers and your teams around you, and realize that if we put accessibility first and change our way of thinking, in a few years' time, we can benefit everyone as a whole, as society. And we need to realize, we won't make an impact today or tomorrow, but in a few months, in a few years, if we change our way of thinking, we can. So, making a difference. I'd like to finish with a story about starfishes in Goa. So Goa's in India, there's the beautiful beaches, 70 miles of beautiful beaches in India. But there's a problem. The tide brings in thousands of little starfishes on the shore, and the sun bakes them every single day. However, there's this little girl that goes onto the beach and she takes a starfish and throws it back into the ocean. And this old man, he goes, "What are you going to do here? There's thousands here. What's one starfish going to do when there's thousands on the bay here?" But she went, "At least I've helped out one starfish. I've made a difference." The key here is, if it's not going to be you that puts accessibility first, then who's it going to be? If you don't start today, then when are you going to start? You can see the key benefits of accessibility. We've got a rising population, aging population. And we can see that it not only benefits your website and the digital services and your business, it benefits everyone. You need to be accountable for accessibility and put it first.